Hello and welcome. This is Kevin Wayne Johnson, and I will be your instructor and facilitator for our time together in this masterclass, Becoming a Person of Influence. Thank you for making an investment in your leadership journey and your career progression. I am the founder and chief executive officer of the Johnson Leadership Group, where we provide a great deal of leadership training and executive coaching for men and women who are looking to make a difference as leaders in their current journey and on their way to future promotions as well. So, whether you're leading yourself or a team or an entire organization, welcome. And I'm also the creator of the Leaders Are Learners Academy. And again, I so appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to tap into this master class. We have a lot of resources that will be available for you in the resources section as you go through each of your lesson plans and then overall in terms of the overall view and summary of the curriculum and the agenda. But we will be looking at specifically a inventory in terms of how you currently influence others and who do you influence and where and when. And you'll be able to follow along in your workbook and your participant guide, which is available for you in the resources section. You'll also have access to this PowerPoint presentation as we go through. It's a combination of narrative as well as graphics. There will be a couple of videos that we will share with you. You'll see one video where we get into a conversation around the three key positive influences. And then you'll see a video clip from a movie entitled The Pursuit of Happiness, all about influence. We also have a copy of our trifold brochure. We also have a couple of images that are built in to the various lesson plans as well that add value to the content and the curriculum. And then you'll also discover as we go through our time together, you'll have a chance to pause and stop and reflect. And what's nice about this masterclass is that you'll also have the opportunity to go back and review and kind of have the material be repeated, if you would, at your leisure, because this is your master class and you'll have an opportunity to do that. We have a couple of built-in quizzes as we go through our time together. So I believe that you'll enjoy this. I will certainly enjoy it as well. And then at the very end, I'll leave my contact information so that you can reach out and touch at any time during your leadership journey. Now, we want to start out in your participant guide. You'll see that we are going to go through this particular topic because leadership is influence. So you can turn to page number 7 in your participant guide, and at the very top, it'll say session number 1, introduction. And as we go through our time together, just take your time and fill in the blanks, and the information will kind of resonate with you. You'll also see that we have references to different quotes by different leaders that are embedded in your participant guide as well that will help you through the process. But leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. That's what we learn from our chief mentor, John Maxwell. He's been recognized universally as the world's #1 leadership guru for quite a number of years. He's really, really good, and he's taught me a lot, and I really appreciate that. But this is what it's all about. It's all about your influence, and what's really key is your positive influence, making a positive impact on those within your sphere of influence. Now, our goal here during our masterclass is to get you to recognize and acknowledge that as you increase your influence, you will also increase your leadership. In other words, you'll be much more influential, Your positive take on getting things done and getting people to cooperate and collaborate and partner will be so much better, and you'll be so much more effective in your journey in terms of what you are doing. So, as your influence increases, you'll see that your ability to lead others also increases because, again, leadership is influence, nothing more and nothing less. So, over on the next page, page number 8, you'll see these two notations, and this is the goal of this masterclass is really twofold, but you'll pick up some other things as well as we go through. But we want you to better understand what influence is all about, and that's why we'll spend our time together focusing on this. And we also want you to be able to increase your influence with others. Translation: we want you to be able to get people in a way that's not very complex, not very complicated, and not very difficult, to be able to get them to participate and to contribute and to get things done. That's how your influence is going to be used, and that's how you end up making a difference in the lives of others. So we'll tackle these two goals in particular, and you'll see that as we go through our time together, there'll be other objectives and elements of the training that will be quite effective as well. So we're going to start this process, this first part, before we actually get into the 10 characteristics and the 10 attributes. We're going to start with what we call an influence inventory. This is a time for you to really take a self-assessment and think about the number of people that are in your sphere of influence. That's what this represents. That's you in the red, and the people surrounding you are your sphere of influence. These are people that you have an opportunity to influence in your personal and in your professional roles, because what we're going to share today applies in both. And so the first question is, who do you influence? And what you'll see here on page number 8 is that there is a principle. And the principle is as follows: as a leader, I attract who I am, not who I want. Very, very important. As a leader, I attract who I am, not who I want. So, what I would like for you to do now is just take a minute or two and list or jot down the top 3 characteristics of a person you want on your team. Just write down those top 3 right there in your workbook, in your participant guide. For example, for Kevin Wayne Johnson, my top 3 are character, integrity, and honesty. Those are the top 3 for me. So that sort of gives you an example of characteristics, attributes, mannerisms, behaviors, all wrapped up in one, that you would be looking for a person on your team. Now, at the top of page number 9, we have a series of scenarios for you to also take some time and jot down your responses there in your workbook and your participant guide. And it goes as follows: do I influence? And then we have 10 different categories. And what I would like for you to do is just circle one of the 2 choices. Now, in some instances, you may influence both, but for the purpose of this masterclass, just choose one. And it starts out with, do you influence leaders or followers, thinkers or doers, big picture people, little picture people? And it goes all the way down to eagles or turkeys. So take just a minute or two and think about these real hard in terms of who do you influence. And I'll give you an example. Kevin Wayne Johnson, between positive and negative people, I'm better at influencing negative people because I'm a glass half full type guy, and I have a lot of optimism in my heart. And people who are negative, I can get them to sort of see the light, and I can get them to see the positivity all around them, and change their thought and change their ideas and change their way of life. So I'm much more effective in terms of influencing negative people versus positive people. So for that example, I would circle negative people. But just go through that, because that helps us with this inventory to identify who it is that we currently influence. So continuing along with the influence inventory, so here's the next one, and it is who. I'm sorry, how. How do you influence others? And the principle here is how I influence people will determine how many, how long, and how effectively I influence them. How many, how long, and how effectively I influence them. That's the principle. So how do you influence others? And what we're going to take a look here on page number 9 is we're going to look at these different methods of influence from worst to first. So starting out with force, hopefully your response is no, I don't use force to influence people, because that's not a very effective way. Again, we're going from worst to first. The next one is intimidation, because with intimidation, as you can see, with that one finger pointing at us, there's 3 more pointing back at us. So one finger pointing out, 3 pointing back in, and that's sort of the highway or my way mentality. Then we go to the next one, which is manipulation, and then position. So manipulation, there is a winner, but there's also a loser as well. And then position has everything to do with the fact that we follow because we have to, not necessarily because we want to. The next one here under the how do I influence others is exchange and persuasion. Now, with exchange, as you can see here in the image, there's a mutual agreement in terms of what the exchange is. And in this case, it's more of a win-win scenario. And then there is persuasion. You see the images of the hearts that are popping up from the iPhone or the cell phone. And you'll see now that we are in a position that people are following because they want to, not because they have to. And now, again, going from worst to first, how do you influence others? Through respect. And that's the best. That's number one. That's first. So force was the worst, not so good, and all the way to the best or first because of respect. And when we respect people, they definitely will want to follow us. So that is the how. So we looked at the who, and we just answered the how. And so now let's move to the next piece of this influence inventory, and it is how many do you influence? How many people in your personal and or professional life do you influence? So on page number 10, you'll see that the principle here is, as a leader, the number of people who follow is based on my level of influence. The number of people. That's why we're asking the question, how many do you influence? Now, there's a note here that you can take note of there in your handbook, in your participant guide, everyone influences someone. But right beneath that, few people influence a lot of people. So we all influence someone, but it's not very many people that really influence a lot. And so when you take it, look at your leadership potential and your leadership level, you'll quickly find out here in the middle of the page that the difference between these two lines, your potential and your level, is determined by number one, leadership, number two, willingness to change, and then number three, desire to grow. So number one is leadership, number two, willingness to change, and then number three, desire to go. We live in a world, everyone, where the only thing constant is change. So we do have to have a willingness to change. It definitely has an impact on how many we influence. And then also on that same line, we have to have a desire to grow. In essence, this academy is called Leaders Are Learners and Leaders Are Readers, because even though we're in a leadership position and or aspire to a leadership position, we have to keep in mind that we have to stay in a state of constant growth. Very key, very, very important. All right, we are still on page number 10 in your workbook. And then the next piece of the influence inventory is this. When do you influence others? Timing is so key and it's so important. And the principle here for this question, when do you influence others, is our value and significance rises when we influence others at a time when it is needed most. Oh, that critical time. I can give you so many examples when a person showed up in my life right on time, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. I needed that right on time. So when you influence others is very, very key. So as a leader, you and I can sense these three things. We're over on page number 11. Leaders are readers, and leaders are able to sense teachable moments, breakthrough places, and what we call catalyst times. Teachable moments. So take a look at mommy and her son as he is learning to ride the bike, right? I mean, the timing is perfect. He's probably eager and ready to go, and mom is ready and she looks very happy, and it's just a time to do some teaching and pour into the life of her son. And so it's a critical time in the life of this little boy for mom to come alongside to say, this is how you do it, and give him the confidence and the inspiration to keep going. In the event he falls, she can be there to pick him up and have him to keep moving forward. Leaders also sense breakthrough places. So here's an example of young children. They have their backpack on, so we can most likely share or make an assumption that school is over. It looks like it's a beautiful day outside. Perhaps it's the last day of school and they made it through the year and it's time to celebrate. And so they get together here as they're walking home. It appears that they're on a pathway, perhaps on their way home, and they are celebrating. We did it. We got it done. We completed the work, all of the assignments. It's a great day to be alive. And then a catalyst time represents the fact that, this light bulb has had some challenges with being illuminated and having the light to actually come on and shine. And one day, this light bulb discovered that if he were to just plug the electrical outlet into the unit where the electricity is flowing, I would get it. The light bulb would go off. This would be awesome. And that's exactly what's about to happen. It's a catalyst time, a significant change in our lives for the better. And when that light bulb goes off, those ideas start to going and the creativity comes out and the innovation, and it's just a wonderful time. So, teachable moments, breakthrough places, catalyst times as well. Here's the next question for you in this influence inventory, and that is why? Why do you influence others? We're here on page number 11. The principle that governs this one is why you do something ultimately determines what you do. So the underlying reason as to why you do something will ultimately determine what you do, what steps you would take. And right here, trust represents the right motives are crucial to people because leadership functions on the basis of trust. You can see here on these are some gymnasts, and it looks like they are perhaps at the circus, and they're doing their high wire act. It takes a lot of trust because generally speaking, they are way up in the air. And I know there's a net underneath them to keep from having any type of a major accident. But trust is the underlying reason why we influence others, because they trust us. Now, there's a scenario for you there at the bottom of page number 11, and just beneath it, it goes on to elaborate on the fact that continual wrong motives is a result of bad character. So the paragraph above kind of gets into why character is so important, because character is connected to the heart. And it's with us in all situations. Character is really who we are. It's the person we see in public, and we also trust that that person is the same in private. But continual wrong motives is a result of bad character. All right, let's take a look at the next one, and that is where. This is all part of our inventory. We're doing a self-assessment. This particular masterclass gives us an opportunity to look at ourselves first before we dive into the 10 characteristics and attributes that we will be discussing as we go through our masterclass. So where do you influence others? We're at the top of page 12 now. And the section here where you'll see in bold, remember the position doesn't make the leader makes the position. And in your workbook, there are 4 particular what we call leadership mistakes that are often made by people in the middle of the pack. Leadership mistakes. Let's take a look at these 4. The first one is this: if I'm not on top, I can't lead. That's a mistake, because leadership is influence and not position. All right, number 2. When I get to the top, then I will learn to lead. Nope. Leaders are learners, so it's an ongoing and gradual process. Number 3. If I were on top, everyone would follow. Doesn't work that way. People follow us because of our influence and because of our leadership style, not necessarily because we hold a title or a position. And then number 4, when I get to the top, I will be able to do anything. And that's not the case either. We have to be men and women of integrity. We have to have ethics, and we have to have character in everything that we do. When people are watching, and when they're not watching as well. So those are very, very important, and those are mistakes. Now, when you take a look here at what's going on in this particular image, you'll see that people can be much more effective in terms of their influence one with another through proximity. So being closer to people to the maximum extent possible helps to increase our influence, as opposed to perhaps the boss walking into the room and standing at the head of the table and having everyone else to sort of move down, creating space and proximity between him or her and their people. So this is what this image is sharing with us. Where do you influence others? And being in close proximity as much as possible has proven over time to be much more effective than being further away. And in part, that's why video conferencing has become so much more popular, because even at a great distance, we can see each other sort of up close and personal and have the opportunity for conversation and dialogue. So that completes for this masterclass the influence inventory. We took a look at the who, what, when, and where, and how. And that gives you a good idea of where you stand in your leadership journey as we now move into the section where we take a closer look at what we call the 10 characteristics or attributes of influence, becoming a person of influence. If you have these built in deep inside, then you will increase your influence, meaning that you will be much more effective as a leader. So on page number 13 and page number 14, you'll see some insights here that we have for you. And the first one is this: leadership is influence. And you'll see a couple of quotes here that we have for you as well that you can read through at your convenience. Number two is our influence with others is usually not in all areas. And what that is intended to tell us is that as leaders, we have to surround ourselves with people who have the intelligence and the acumen and the subject matter expertise in areas that we don't have, because we just don't have all of the expertise that will be needed or required to get everything done. We don't have the time, we don't have the bandwidth, and we just don't have the knowledge. So that's very, very important. Over on page 14, with influence comes responsibility. And you'll see that we have a couple of bullets there. And the third bullet down is this: too many leaders want the perks of leadership without paying the price of leadership. So influence does come with responsibility. Number four, my influence with others is either positive or negative. It's not much wiggle room in between. It's not lukewarm. It's either positive, thumbs up, or negative, thumbs down. And that's why we have to be very careful. And we're going to dive into these 10 characteristics and 10 attributes that will help us all as we increase our influence. Number 5 is our influence can grow. That means we can get better, we can improve, we can develop, because leaders are learners. That's very, very important. And then number 6, people of positive influence add value to others. We add value to people. We are people of value, leaders, who add value to others. That's the mentality that we really need to have to be really, really good with influencing others to contribute, to participate, and to attend and get things done. That's what we're really attempting to do. And it's very relational in terms of being able to accomplish that. Now, at the top of page 15, we add value to people when we truly value people, number one. Number two, we know and relate to what they value. Number three, we make ourselves more valuable. And there are many ways of doing that, but one of the best ways of doing that is just having a good relationship with people within our sphere of influence and presenting ourselves as friendly and approachable. And what we do goes a long way, makes a really, really big difference. So we become more valuable. We also make ourselves available to coach and mentor and pour into people's lives. And then number four is we do the things that we value. Very important. We do the things that we value, and that's how we add value to people. Very key and very important. So, right there in your workbook, write down a person's name that you want to influence. Again, in your personal life or in your professional life, think about it. Write the name of a person you want to influence. There's an example that I would like to share with you. I am very impressed with really, really good actors and good actresses and how they're able to influence us to watch their films, watch their TV programs, even watch their commercials in some cases. And one of the many, many actors that I would love to have the opportunity to influence is Morgan Freeman. I've been following his career for a good number of years, and he actually starred in one of my favorite movies many, many years ago, Lean on Me. And if I had a chance to talk with him, I would just like to kind of pick his brain and kind of understand how he selected his career field and how he became so good at it, right? His voice, he has that deep voice. And it's just a really interesting thing. So that's an example for you when you think about the name of that person. So as we wrap up this particular section of this masterclass, I want you to really think hard and write down some really good thoughts in your handbook, in your participant guide, around the questions: who do you influence? How do you influence? How many do you influence? When do you influence? Why do you influence? And where do you influence? That's a very, very important part of this masterclass because that'll put you in a position to really think hard about the next section that we're going into. But again, before we look through the lens at others, let's first, as leaders, look through the mirror at ourselves. And this entire section in this masterclass is really intended to get us to take a look in the mirror. And again, you have the flexibility and the option to pause, rewind, go back, review. Just take your time and answer each of those questions, jot them down in the spaces there in your workbook because it'll help us all in our learning and in our way forward. All right, so now we're going to spend the next portion. We're on page number 16 there in your workbook. We're going to take a look at 10 ways to increase influence. 10 different ways to increase influence. Now, when you apply each of these to your life, again, personal and professional, you will see a difference in terms of getting people to follow, again, to attend, to participate, and to contribute. It does make a really, really big difference in your life and in the lives of others. So, You'll see at the very top on page number 16, it says Session 2, Integrity with People. Now, again, as we go through, you'll see different images that we have uploaded for you that sort of reinforce this particular area. And you'll also have an opportunity also to take a look at least two videos that we have populated for you as well. All right, let us begin. Number one is integrity. Integrity with people. You'll see here on page 16 that there's a quote by the former President of the United States, Dwight Eisenhower, on some of his thoughts. And what I always ask you to do is to read through that and highlight or underline the one section or phrase or word there that really stands out to you, that really speaks to you, and keep that as a permanent piece there in your handbook. Now, it might be the entire quote, but in many instances, it just comes down to maybe a sentence or a phrase or even just a word. So highlight that piece and that part that really speaks to you. And then again, you'll see here at the bottom of page number 16, it's the trust. That's the glue that holds people together, right? So a person of integrity is really one that keeps their word, does what they say they will do, walks the walk, talks the talk, someone who's reliable and has demonstrated over time that we can trust them. When you have that as a part of your arsenal, you are now in a position to increase your influence. On page 17 at the very top, we surveyed about 1,300 executives, and the question was, what quality do you desire most in your team members? And the response came back 3 out of 4. 75% said integrity. 3 out of 4, 75% said integrity is the quality that we most desire. Now, of course, there are other qualities, but integrity is the one most desired. You can also take a look at the 2 paragraphs there on page number 17. You can read through those. Take just a minute or so and read through that. And this has to do with a mission statement that drove the leader of an organization to make a very, very key decision that they knew would have a financial impact, but it was a decision based on integrity. This was many, many years ago. I happen to remember it. It cost the company a lot of money, but the way in which the leader was able to embrace the other leaders to come up with a decision and to solve a problem, even though they would lose an exorbitant amount of money, it was all about being a company of integrity. And that won over losing money in the short run. So here are some things to think about in terms of integrity for influencers. Number one, does your organization have good written values? Number two, do the leaders practice and model them for others? Number three, do I place the interest of my people above my own? And then number four, am I accountable to others for my actions? Being self-accountable is first and foremost before we can hold others accountable. And number five is already written out for you, but another way of looking at that is, are we comfortable in our own skin, and do we even like ourselves? Because that will be a driver in terms of how effectively we can work with others. All right, top of page 18. The next one is nurtures people. Number one is just being a person of integrity. Number two is nurturing. And you'll see that we have a couple of notations there at the top of page number 18. And one of them is that many leaders love their position more than their people. When that happens, they soon lose their position. Few leaders love their people more than their position. When that happens, leaders strengthen their position. You see the difference between the two? Makes a big, big difference. Who's first, people or the position? And people will know. You don't necessarily have to say anything, they'll know because of your actions. So, this is very interesting when we're talking about nurturing. If you would read the paragraph there in the middle of page number 18, achievers care about people, putting people first. So, you can see that the image here represents an environment. The young lady's hand is the current environment for the soil that's providing the nutrients and the nourishment to the plant. The plant looks very healthy. It looks like it's a sunny day. It's green. It's growing upward. And it looks like as the roots go down into the soil, that they're getting all of the sustenance that they need so that the plant can continue to grow. So the plant is being nurtured in that environment. But soon and very soon, as the plant continues to grow upward and the roots continue to grow downward, the plant is going to have to be replanted. It's going to have to go to another environment where it can be nurtured so it can continue to grow, because in the current environment, it won't. It will be limited, it will be stagnated. And so at some point, she's going to have to actually replant the plant in a garden or in a much more spacious place so that it continue to grow. But right where it is, we can be that nurture. But you'll see here on page 18 at the bottom, here are some notes on nurturing people. And number one is this: nurturing people does not mean needing people, needing. Number two, nurturing people does mean commitment to people. Number three, nurturing people does mean loving people. That's the unconditional love that we should have for people. Reminds us of the golden rule. We just want to treat people the way we would want to be treated. That makes perfect sense. And then number four on page 19 toward the top, nurturing people does mean lifting people to a higher level. So that's an example that will help all of us to be in a position where we can increase our influence, because nurturing is not babysitting and it's not coddling, but it is helping to provide an environment for growth. Number three, at the top of page 20, is faith. Faith in people. Having confidence in people, helping them to understand that we believe in them, they can get things done. Just having faith in people. So you'll see a couple of notations here under number three, and it starts out with assets make things possible, people make things happen. And in leading others, there are three feelings that we cannot possess. We're talking about faith, we're talking about believing in people and having confidence in people, but there are three feelings that we cannot possess. And the first one is fear, because if we are afraid of people, we cannot confront them or we cannot hold them accountable. So fear is important. That's a feeling that we cannot have, we cannot possess. Number two is dislike. If we dislike people, we should not lead them. And then number three is contempt. If we look down on people, we will not value them. So these are three feelings that we cannot possess. The first one is fear. The second one is dislike. You can't influence people if you dislike them. And then number three is contempt. If you look down on people and you don't like them, your influence just won't be very effective. Over on page 21, you'll see at the very top there's a little annotation there by Les Giblin. He says, you can't make the other fellow feel important in your presence if you secretly feel that he is a nobody. Very true. Very true. So it is wonderful when the people believe in their leader. It is more wonderful when the leader believes in the people. So here are a couple of notes here for you on page number 21. The first one is this: borrowed beliefs have no power. Number two, we become outside what we believe inside. And number three, lack of belief in people hurts both the leader and the people. So we're talking about ways to increase your influence. Here are the next three, and we're going to start with listen, being a better listener, and then understanding people, and then enlarging people. We're on our way to talking about 10 ways to increase influence. So listening is very, very key. When you and I make a conscious choice to listen to a person who's speaking to us, it sends the subliminal message that we care and that we value and we respect what it is that they're saying. Even if we don't necessarily agree, we still respect the fact that they have something to say. And so here are some keys to becoming a better listener. And we call this climbing the ladder to becoming a better listener. And the first one is this: look at the speaker. Secondly, ask questions, but equally important, they should be thought-provoking and open-ended questions so that the recipient won't have a chance to just say yes or no or give us a one-word answer. Don't interrupt. Very key. That sends a wrong message when someone is speaking to us and we interrupt them. And in alignment with that, don't change the subject, because now we're sending a message that what they're saying is really not important and we're not interested, and you don't want to do that. So don't interrupt and don't change the subject. And then keep your emotion in check. Be emotionally intelligent. And then lastly, responsive listening. And that's an example of maybe echoing what they said, repeating what they said so that they would know that you actually heard and understood what it is they were talking about. Goes a very long way. This is what we call the climbing the ladder approach to becoming a much better listener. On page 23 at the very top, there are what we call 4H questions to becoming a better listener. Number one is, what is their heart? What's in their heart? Number two, what is their hope? Number three, what is their hurt? What are some things that they might be dealing with that are very hurtful in their heart and in their mind? And then number four is, how can I help? Right? Being supportive, being an advocate, that's all part of being a better listener. And it will help us all to increase our influence as we look to increase our leadership. Now, there's a quiz here that I would like for you to take. Take your time, no rush, but answer these 8 questions. And in doing so, if you respond always, you're going to give yourself a 4. If you respond usually, give yourself a 3. And if you respond rarely, give yourself a 2. And even if your answer is never, still give yourself a 1. And read through each of these questions as a part of the quiz. Answer all 8. And at the very end, you'll be able to add up your score. And at the end of your score, if you are 26 or higher, you are an excellent listener. If you score 22 to 25, you are a better than average listener. If you score between 18 and 21, there's an opportunity for improvement, an opportunity for development, and that's good because that's what it's all about. Leaders are learners, and leaders are readers. So we're always looking to get better. But if you score a 17 or less, then at the very end of our time together, I'd like for you to contact me so we can have a conversation. Okay? So just take a minute or so. This is one of those times in this masterclass where you can put us on pause, go back, take your quiz, take a look at your score, and do some assessment. That'll be a really, really good thing. All right. We are now on page 25 at the very top where it says understands people. I remember back in school, my 11th grade teacher in English really, really understood my aptitude for the subject, and she helped to direct me into teaching and training, and that was in the 11th grade, and here we are today, and I'm still doing that because she understood Kevin Wayne Johnson. And as you can see in the image, we have a mathematician who is very busy with the algebra and the calculus and the trigonometry and the other mathematics and the formulas that he's putting there. But he has his back toward us. And the question is, while he understands that, do others understand it? So we increase our influence by understanding people. And you'll see here in the middle of page 25, you'll see here where it says, to understand the mind of a person, look at what he has achieved. To understand the heart of a person, look at what he dreams of becoming. Absolutely. Now, Norm Wright reminds us of a couple of very important points, and there are 2 basic reasons why relationships fail. So we fail to understand the other person. So the first one is fear, because fear causes us to erect barriers. And then number 2 is selfishness, because selfishness causes us to focus on self instead of focusing on others. And so this is very important as we go forward in our journey. Again, the mathematician understands everything there on the blackboard, but I would submit to you that there may be a number of people within his sphere of influence that don't. And when that happens, we lessen our ability to influence. Now, at the top of page 26, this is an opportunity now for you to fill in the 8 blanks. Take your time. There is no wrong or right answer per se. It's your view and it's your perspective. So, keys to understanding. Leading people by reading people. We talked a little bit earlier about leaders are able to sense teachable moments, catalyst times, breakthrough places. And so keys to understanding, leading people by reading people. And I'm going to ask you to just take a look at those 8 blanks, and from your view and your perspective, write down what you think are those keys to understanding people. I'll give you an example. I'll give you just a quick cue. One of my 8 is background. Just better understanding the background of a person. Where'd you grow up? What's your educational level? What are your likes, your dislikes? what's your work experience? What are some of your hobbies? Just getting to know the background. Do you have siblings or are you an only child? And that kind of helps us to understand how to work with a person and perhaps how we interact with that particular person based upon what we know. So you can fill in the blank, take your time, pause, come back, take a look at it. Again, there is no wrong answer because it's your view and it's your perspective. So just go ahead and write those down. And just beneath that, though, I wanted to share with you that you have to see what others see. So that's relationship. And developing relationships with people and kind of understanding how they operate and how they move, being able to see what others see as relationship. And then before they see it, what you see. So before they see what you see, that's leadership. You're able to actually see as a visionary and as a strategic thinker, you're able to see things before others who are following you can actually see them. And in part, that's how we use our influence. So you're going to use your time here to, again, populate the 8 spaces there at the top of page number 26. And then that'll give you some perspectives on how you go about understanding people. Now, at the top of page number 27, it's session 3, and that is enlarges people. An influencer enlarges people. So success is tied into these 3 things. Number one, you grow yourself, you grow your people, and you grow your organization. It always starts with us. Leaders are learners. So grow yourself, grow people, and then grow the organization. So success is, on page 27, knowing your purpose in life, growing to your maximum potential, and sowing seeds that benefit others. Knowing your purpose in life, growing to your maximum potential, and sowing seeds that benefit others. One of my favorite motivational speakers of all time, he's quoted here at the bottom of page 27. Zig Ziglar, loved the man. All the way into his 70s, he was still on stages with a microphone in his hand, having hilarious motivational moments with his audiences around the world. And he reminds us that you will always have everything in life that you want if, and it's capitalized, if you help enough people get what they want. So true. So absolutely true. And again, this can be applied in both our personal and our professional lives. Now here are the next 3. At the top of page number 28, you'll see, as it relates to the 10 ways to increase influence. The next one here, number 7, is navigates. Now, you'll see that image, and this is an image that you see in your navigator, whether it's on your phone or in your car. But the navigator helps you and I get from A to Z in the least time-consuming way. In some cases, our navigator can help us to avoid construction and traffic. And in other instances, it's just interested in getting us there in the shortest amount of time. All of the above are relatable. And the navigator also helps us when we get off course to recalibrate and to reroute. And in essence, that's what you and I are as leaders. We help navigate. We are the GPS for people in our sphere of influence. When we see people going left and we know they should go right, we help to navigate that. When we see someone going north and we know they should go south, we help to navigate that. So we navigate for people because, as you can see here in the middle of page 28, There are those who can see the problem ahead and avoid it, and there are those that can experience the problem and fix it, and there are those who cannot see the problem or fix it, and they become overwhelmed. That's right there in the middle of page number 28. So a leader is one who sees more than others see. A leader is one who sees farther than others see. And a leader is one who sees before others see. That's the beauty about being in leadership. We can see things because that's part of our responsibility. We're strategic thinkers and we're visionaries that others can't necessarily see. And that's part of the navigation process. Again, we become just like a GPS. When someone gets off track, we recalibrate and we reroute for their benefit. All right, at the very top of the next page, page number 29, you'll see where it says connects with people. Now, these are all very, very important, but connecting with people also has a lot to do with what we teach around communication as well. Because connecting and building bridges and finding common ground is so key and it's so important in what we do, and it increases our influence. So we connect with people, and there's a little formula here at the top of page 29, and that is that credibility plus communication equals connection. Very, very important. So let's take a look at why people connect when they communicate. Why do people connect when they communicate? So the first one is this: people listen because of who you know. That's relationships. Number two, people listen because of what you have suffered. That's sacrifice. Number three, people listen because of what you know. That's insight. Number four, people listen because of what you have achieved. That's experience. Number five, people listen because of what you are able to do. That's ability. Number six, people listen because of what you sense, and that's intuition. Number seven, people listen because of your integrity. That's character. People listen, number eight, because of your heart. That's humility. Number nine, people listen because you identify with their needs. That's relevance. And then the last one is people listen because of your passion, and that's convictions. So this all has to do with why people connect when they communicate. Relationships, sacrifice, insight, experience, ability, intuition, character, humility, relevance, and convictions. All of these are very key, and you'll find those right there on page number 29. Now, at the top of page 30, here's another very, very short quiz. This one is very short and sweet. It'll take less than 60 seconds. At the top of page 30, we ask you the question: why do people listen to you? List your top two responses. Why do people listen to you? Just jot it right down there in your handbook. For Kevin Wayne Johnson, I believe people listen to me because I present myself as someone who is friendly and approachable. I think that's why people listen to me. And I've always been that way. It's just the core of who I am. I've never changed since the time I was a little boy. So that would be the response to that question for me. And just below that, How to connect with people. The first one, in terms of how to connect with people, would be go to their world. Find out what's on their mind and find out what's in their heart. Just go into their world and just ask questions and then communicate from the heart. Show that you have emotions and show that you can be vulnerable and you can be transparent. And these are two really good ways to connect with people. And then the third one would be find the key to their life. KEY. That key represents how you and I, as an influencer and a leader, can unlock that door that might be preventing them from being the best that they can be. That's what that key represents. Find the key to their life. What is that one thing in their life that you can possibly unlock with that key to help them to find their destiny and to tap into their potential? That's all about connecting, and that's how we increase our influence. Absolutely. That's how we increase our influence. One of my favorite airlines is Southwest Airlines, and for a lot of different reasons. But Southwest Airlines, number one, they make it very easy for me to purchase my tickets online. I'm sure the other carriers do, but Southwest has just taken it to a whole nother level. They came out with their app many years ago, prior to some of the other airlines, and it's just very easy. And they're always offering steep discounts online to purchase my tickets. The other reason I like them is because for the majority of the major cities across the United States, and then even some of the international destinations, it's nonstop. So I don't have to stop and lay over and then jump on another plane. I really like that. Number two, when I move on to any given airline, I am greeted as I come into the airplane by the flight attendant and the pilot. I'm greeted by the flight attendant and the pilot. That's pretty phenomenal. And then number three, when I take my seat on a Southwest flight and I look forward, there's an image of a heart toward the cockpit. And that heart represents love and emotion and compassion and caring. They care for their customer. And it goes a long way. So that's a connection that I wanted to share with you as an example. And it could be your favorite restaurant, your favorite clothing line, your favorite musician. It could be any number of things that you consider to be your favorite. But that, by and large, is why Southwest is my favorite airline, because they know how to make that connection with their customer. And then next is empowers. Empowers. So on page 31 at the very top, you'll see session 4, empower. An influencer empowers people. So here's your next quiz that I would like for you to take for the next minute or so. You'll see that we have 10 questions for you here at the bottom of page 31. The first question is, do I believe in people and feel that they are my organization's most appreciable asset? So take about a minute or so and go through these 10 questions, because it would help us to better understand the significance of empowering others and how that gives us the influence, the positive influence, to be able to effectively get people to appreciate, to contribute, to attend, and to partner with us as we go forward. So go ahead and answer those 10 questions, and you can write your response right there in your participant guide. Now, on the next page, page number 32 at the very top, here's an example of some empowerment decisions I made concerning an assistant. Now, my administrative assistant is outstanding. She really helps me out in a time of need, and I really appreciate all that she does with such a wonderful attitude. But number one is that I determined not to know everything. As a leader, we don't need to know everything. We can just surround ourselves by good people who can help us out. And they really appreciate it because they want to help. We just have to ask. Number two, I determined not to know everything first. I don't have to be the first to know. Just I'm a learner and I'm a reader, so I'm always interested in being open and receptive to hear what others have to deposit in my life. Number three, I determined not to become the primary source of communication. So it's okay to have a conversation with my assistant, my administrative assistant, as a part of what we're doing because we are a team, TEAM. Together, everyone achieves more. Number four, I determined not to let someone else represent me. I determined to let someone else represent me. Absolutely. I can't be every place all the time. So it's perfectly fine for my assistant to represent me in the appropriate venue. And then number five is I determined to stay with my lane or the area where I am an expert. I will stay in that lane and not necessarily try to veer out because there are just some things that my assistant is gifted at that I'm not. And I want her to step up and be in the forefront. And then here on page 32, empowerment means these four things. Empowerment means seeing the potential of the individual and the proper fit for the job. Number two, saying words that encourage, equip, and empower that person. Number three, sharing your knowledge, experience, and influence with them. And then number four, showing to others your belief in and power given to that person. So seeing, saying, sharing, and showing, these are all part of what we do as leaders to empower others. And it goes a long way. People really appreciate it. They really do. Here's the last one here for the 10 ways to increase influence is through what we call reproducing, replicating, right? So if you take a look over on your far left, you'll see that 80% of leaders attract followers. That's a pretty big number. But then the number gets a little bit smaller because 10% of leaders attract leaders. And then the numbers get even smaller, and that is that 5% of leaders reproduce leaders. So as persons of influence, we tend to have a number of followers, but very few of those followers actually have an interest in becoming leaders, and then even fewer actually become leaders. And so these are ways that we can increase our influence because guess what? Those 5% of leaders that we reproduce can then go out and echo what we just learned together in this masterclass in terms of these 10 ways to increase influence. And before you know it, we would have reached, hundreds and hundreds of people that would have these strategies and these principles and these tools to add to their toolbox. So it's not very difficult to attract a number of followers, but it becomes a little bit more trying to now reproduce other leaders. And so how can I produce other leaders? At the bottom of page 33, number one is model good leadership. Be the example that you want others to see and that you want others to emulate. Number two, provide leadership training, what we're doing here. And number three, provide leadership resources. And number four, provide leadership experiences. So you have made the investment in your leadership journey and in your career. And so we are providing the leadership training and the resources and the experiences we're sharing together during this particular journey. And that's why I started out at the very beginning. I'm so proud that you are making this investment. And then number five is just create a growth environment. Make sure that we set the tone and we set the environment such that it's conducive for people to be able to learn and want to learn and be all they can be. It means a lot. It goes a very long way. So as we conclude our time together, look over on page number 34, and here are some ways that we can produce that growth environment that we just talked about. So, a growth environment is a place where, number one, others are ahead of you. In other words, we're thinking more about their needs than our own. Number two, you are still challenged, right? Everything can't be easy. You don't learn when things are easy. We have to be challenged. That's number two. Number three is your focus is forward. As a leader, you're a strategic thinker. So you're thinking 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, 2 years ahead as a leader. Number four, the atmosphere is affirming. It's positive. It's conducive for learning. Number five, you are out of your comfort zone. That, again, being out of your comfort zone gives us the opportunity to kind of figure things out and to get better in terms of who we are and what we're doing. Number six, you wake up excited. Having some zeal and some enthusiasm in terms of what we do every day is very, very important. Number seven, failure is not feared. Now, failure is a subjective word to many of us, but when we fall down, please get up and try again. This is an opportunity to do it better, to be better, to improve, and to continue in your development. Don't let failure, however you define it, stop you in your footsteps. Number eight, others are growing. So you're seeing people all around you that are getting better, they're improving, they're growing, they're increasing in their knowledge. That's how we know that we have a growth environment. Number nine is there is a willingness to change, because the only thing constant is change. And then number 10, growth is modeled and expected. Yeah, it's an expectation that when you come into this environment, because you and I have been there, that everybody's going to get better, including ourselves. Makes a big difference. So, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our time together in this masterclass. I want to thank you all so very much. This is Kevin Wayne Johnson. If you have any questions on anything at all that I can help you with, if you need to reach out to me for support or advocacy, or if you have any other concerns or issues, just reach out to me at the Johnson Leadership Group at gmail.com. The Johnson Leadership Group at gmail.com. I am really proud of you for making an investment in your time. Again, in this masterclass, you have a chance to go back, review, take a look at your notes, replay those videos, take a look at the PowerPoint again, go through your handbook, look at the various images that we've populated for you, and this will be a good step forward in your career progression and your leadership journey as it relates to becoming a person of influence, because it's ongoing and it never stops. That's why we use the word becoming. It's continual and it's recurring. All right, so thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be with you. All the best to you in your journey. Bye-bye.